Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Intrusive Thoughts with Adam Rippon. And you guessed it, I am Adam Rippon. So on this show, we talk about a lot of things, right? We talk about a lot of things. Sometimes we talk about my microwave. Sometimes we talk about my range hood. We've even talked about the reading glasses that I wear. Because, yeah, sometimes I do need to wear reading glasses. So, it's like sometimes it's nothing too pressing. It's still quite important, right? Very important to me. I love my reading glasses. But it can be a bit brainless, right? I was thinking that today we start the show a little bit differently because there's something that's just really on my mind. And this is going to be a bit more brain forward. Okay. And what I want to talk about is Christian nationalism. All right. So hear me out. I am not entirely sure when this podcast episode is going to come out, but a few weeks ago, the far-right podcaster Charlie Kirk was shot and killed on a college campus. I think that's a terrible thing, right? I don't want to live in a place where someone can get shot in the middle of the day. I don't want to live in a place like that. I don't want to live in a place where people who can get shot on a college campus, can get shot in a church, in a movie theater. I don't want to live in a place like that. But Charlie Kirk was consumed by the same violence he stoked. A terrible thing happened to a man who spent his life amplifying terrible ideas. That's, that's just the way that I feel about it. And it's been completely unsettling for me to see so many people frame him as some sort of like God-fearing free speech activist, because he wasn't. I don't see it that way at all. And I don't know how someone could. I don't think that there's any way around the fact that he was racist, he was homophobic, he was transphobic, Islamophobic, he peddled conspiracy theories. And there are so many people out there who I've seen online who are saying, he was killed for having different beliefs. No. No. When someone says that black women who are in positions of power only get there by stealing the job of a white man, that's not a belief. That's racist. The civil rights movement was a mistake. That stoning gay people is God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. That's not a belief system. I can't believe. I guess I can believe, but it just does not sit right with me that people are getting online and saying, I didn't agree with everything he had to say, but you're still going out of your way to memorialize someone who's said that immigrants are coming to America to replace white people. What the fuck are you talking about? It leaves me speechless, because that belief system is wrapped up in Christian nationalism. It's religion fused with political power. Because the Jesus Christ of the Christian nationalists does not and did not ever exist. Jesus Christ was not a white guy from Maryland or Indiana or New York or California or Florida. He was not an American flag-wearing, 4th of July, firework-loving, hot dog-eating, God-toting conservative. He wasn't. He historically was a brown Jewish guy from the Middle East. He spoke of peace. He was friends with the sinners and the prostitutes. The Jesus of the Bible broke bread with the outcasts. that's the Jesus that I learned. I went to Catholic school, Our Lady of Peace in Clarks Green, Pennsylvania. I went to Catholic school. That's the Jesus that I learned about. The Jesus I learned about didn't preach about the great replacement theory. Like, in what world are we living in that anyone is listening to anything that came out of that guy's mouth and is going, that's the word of God? Of God? I feel, unfortunately, if you think that is the word of God, you have lost the plot and you've become someone that you fear the most. You're a lost sheep. You're led by fear and by hate. And if your idea of faith requires other people to be less safe, less free, less human, that's just bigotry and racism disguised as religion. Those aren't beliefs. It's just racism and bigotry. In the Bible, Jesus says to beware of false prophets. Be cautious of people who present themselves as spiritual leaders, but are deceptive and harmful. He warns his disciples to identify them by their actions and the results of their teachings. And so I still, it just blows my absolute mind that some people are just out here saying, Charlie Kirk he was a great thinker or a great debater. Please give me a fucking break and get so for real. Charlie Kirk helped this generation find their way back to the Lord. Do you think the Lord, God, is up in heaven going, oh, thank God Target got rid of its DEI policies? Do you think that? There's this war on culture that is being framed as this people getting away from godliness, to the point where people are legitimately scared of pronouns. And it's not really the pronouns, it's what it really is, the core center of it is that so many people are afraid of being uncomfortable for even just a moment, for just a second, that they'd rather just be spiteful. And I do not believe that saying something cruel with conviction and then to double down and say it's what God wants, I can't believe that. I don't believe that. I think if you think that's what God is saying, you serve a false God, a God that does not exist. That is not the God from the Bible that you are so obsessed with. It makes me so uneasy because I refuse to accept that I don't agree with everything he said, but yeah, I think the human side of all of us can agree that no one deserves to be shot and killed in broad daylight on a school campus. I said it earlier, but I want to live in a place where you can feel safe to go to the movies or to church or to school or a concert, and you shouldn't have to fear that you could go there and get shot. Living this way is not normal. This doesn't happen in other parts of the world this often. And we don't get to a place that's better than this by saying gun deaths are worth it so that we can have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, the Second Amendment is not a God-given right. Okay? It was a right that was written into a document in 1776 when the firearm that was available for you to purchase was a fucking musket. And that's what I believe. And so I'm just not going to get behind this. Well, he was a God-fearing. No, I think something terrible happened to somebody who stoked a lot of terrible things and said a lot of harmful things to a lot of different minority groups. And he peddled on people's insecurities and their fears. And that is not somebody to be celebrated. I can't agree with that. I can't agree with it. I can agree that it was like a terrible thing, and that being shot in the middle of the day is not something that should happen to anybody, but anything else, no. And the Christian nationalism is like the root of this, is that it's just so much of this, bigotry and hate, I really feel is just like disguised as religion, which is so insane. Because if these people were actually religious and they actually were reading the Bible, this is not the teachings of God. These are not the teachings of Jesus Christ. I don't get it. And so, yeah, sometimes we talk about microwaves and range hoods, but not today to open the show. But I think, that's just what I've been thinking, and I've really wanted to get that off of my chest. And so, I'll leave it at that. And why don't we move along? Okay, we'll move along for the sake of the show, and we're back. And let's do a text message. Now we're completely, turning the page on that. Thank you for bearing with me and for sitting with me, because it was important for me to do that. Now we're turning the page, and I am going to say something now that is, we have gotten many great text messages. I think the text messages are really starting to pick up, and I have to say, I really love that. I love that. I really do. And I'm going to need my glasses for this. Whoops. You can hear them clicking and clacking. That's me trying to put my glasses on. Now, let's read our first text message. And it goes a little something like this. And believe me, when I'm saying we're turning the page, it's going to be completely different now. Here we go. Okay. Welcome to Intrusive Thoughts, where truly anything can happen. You bet you weren't expecting that. Well, expect the unexpected. Now, let us begin with the text message. Hi. So I used to be a Starbucks girl, but I've been making my own coffee for a little while now. You go, girl or boy. I don't know who sent this. They didn't give us any sort of name. I make something in the morning at home, and I like to have one extra coffee in the afternoon. Okay. I love the sound of it so far. In my office, we have a Keurig. I just got very dark. Got really dark. Okay. I've never had coffee from a Keurig until recently, and it's so bad. It tastes like garbage water. I need this to get fixed. This just is a bad situation. Have you ever used a Keurig? Do you have a suggestion for an alternative? Desperately need your help. That is true. Thank you to our listener who did send in this message, and it is it's a dark one. The Keurig coffee. Yes, I have had a Keurig coffee before. I want you to know that I feel like my introduction to coffee was through the Keurig machine and the Keurig company. There was something that felt appealing to it. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. At least I think it was one of the first sort of like coffee making mechanisms that wasn't like a drip coffee situation that you could have in your home. And I feel like a lot of us, we came together and we went, it is nice to make one cup at a time, right? Like I don't want to have to make a carafe of drip coffee every single time, even though, and sometimes it doesn't feel this way, but in the drip coffee, you can just make one cup. But it feels crazy to make one cup when the pot is so big, right? You want to fill the pot with the coffee. So I understand the dilemma as somebody who is like, you want to fill that. But I liked the idea of the Keurig being, you're just making one at a time. And when I started having coffee from the Keurig, I feel like I was really using the coffee as a vessel to get the creamer, the flavored creamers in there. Because that was the true point of having the coffee for me, was that I just wanted to have, some sort of like Girl Scout flavored creamer in there. And it was just a vessel. Hindsight is 2020 because I'm realizing I was just having like watered down cream that was warm, right? Like it wasn't a coffee drink in the slightest. It was just like you said, to quote a great American writer, garbage water. Yeah, it really was. And I'm going to tell you when I realized that life didn't need to be like this is when I had my first Nespresso pod. Okay. And I went, oh my God, this is so like rich and velvety. And I did spend money on a Keurig many years ago. I'm going to say like almost 10 years ago, I bought a Keurig. And in my mind, like the Nespresso was just for the billionaires and the 1%. And that's just the way that I saw the Nespresso company and the Nespresso machine, that there was no way around that. It's like, we know that that's for the 1%. That's for the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of the world. That's what Nespresso is for. And then I went to one of my friends' homes. And in the morning, they made me a fresh latte using a Nespresso pod. And when they used this Nespresso pod, I went, whoa. Now this tastes like I'm getting this latte from a barista, not my friend whose name is Douglas. And I said, well, and listen, my friend, they're no billionaire. They are no Bill Gates. And I said, well, how much did you spend, just between us? How much did you spend on that Nespresso? And when I found out it was roughly the same price as a Keurig, I went, I got. And I really felt like they had pulled one on me and I had fallen for it, because the Nespresso pods are not cheap, right? They're about $1 a pod. But when you average it out, it's like you're going to save money rather than going to a Starbucks if you're getting coffee every single day. Listen, sometimes I think you've got to spend that money. But I'll tell you what, I did then switch over. I had to. I switched over to Nespresso. There was nothing I could do. I had to in that moment. And so I sold the Keurig, had to get rid of it, sold that thing. And then I bought the Nespresso machine. And I had that machine for a while. I really loved it. And then my husband was actually the one who was like, maybe we should upgrade this. And I knew when he was talking about this, he was talking about upgrading it to some sort of like, truly like coffee bar sort of situation. And I've got to be honest, like I was not down to do that. I wasn't down to do that because I like had no desire to like weigh the beans and to grind the beans and to create work. Do you know what I mean? That was the whole point of the Keurig, was that it was work less. And even the Nespresso, it was spend more, but still work less. And I didn't want to be work more. I wanted to continue to work less. And so I don't know if I was like totally down for that. Until I found this one machine that we're currently using, and I'm going to let you in on it. And this is, if I had a suggestion for you, this is the suggestion. And it's this. I got this machine. It's called the Gaggia Breva. I don't know. Listen, it's Italian. I don't speak it, obviously. I've had this machine for maybe a month now. Has it changed the game? I do believe it has. It has changed the coffee game in this house because there are no more pods. It is grinding the beans for me, and it's making the espresso for me. I'm not doing anything. Like, it's completely like push one button, back up, go, right? Because I don't really want to use like the cup thing that has the handle that you like click in and you have to pound the coffee stuff down. If you know, you know, right? Like, if you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm talking. I'm not here for I appreciate the dramatics of making a coffee in that way, but I'm not doing that myself. I'm so sorry. I don't think that's in the cards for me. I'm not going to be doing it that way. And so this machine does all of that. It really does do all of that for you. It even kind of like cleans the machine before it turns itself off. And as soon as you turn it on, it like cleans it a little bit. It's quite nice. Like I said, I'm 1 month in, but I do feel that like at this pace, it will sort of like pay for itself. And the coffee is, I mean, I think when you grind the beans fresh, because I'm telling you, you put the beans in, it grinds it for you. The coffee, yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good. And also, this is how I learned what an Americano was, that it's just like espresso with water. That threw me for a loop. You know, I just thought it was like something more elaborate than a watered down espresso, but it isn't. It's actually a lot less elaborate than that. You could even say it's pretty basic. And that's how I found out, because it was like, it said, you know, it had like an Americano function, and I watched it just pour a shot and then just do some hot water in there. And I went, that's it. So if you were wondering what that is, it's just watered down espresso. But that's my suggestion. Because listen, if you're doing this at work, you're not going to be bringing the grinder and you're going to be bringing the scale and pounding the beans. No, you're not going to do that, right? You have to get on a Zoom or something. You don't have time. You need to get the Gaggia Breva or Gaggia Breva. I don't know what it's called, but you'll sound it out, spell it out, find it. And I like it. It needs to be cleaned. And this is also another thing I learned. It's easy to clean, but I learned that like coffee beans are like oily. I guess I should have known that. I didn't. And so like when there is this sort of, when you are cleaning it, you're like, why is it sticky? It's like coffee is oily. So just be aware of that. You need to descale that machine. You got to clean it if you want it to work for a long time, which you do. You got to clean it. You've also got to descale. If you're sitting there going, I'm only still going to use the Keurig and the Nespresso machine, Godspeed. But I do need to tell you that also needs to be descaled. So you also need to do that too. So there is no kind of, there's no way around it. You've got to be cleaning the things that you use. Sorry. I know a lot of people don't like to do that. I also know a lot of people who have never descaled coffee machines that they've had for years. Yeah, that's troubling. I do think it's quite troubling. So at the end of the day, let's go to our boss. Let's go to our floor manager and let's tell them, hey, we got to get rid of this Keurig machine because it is just making dirty garbage water. Let's make a real coffee and we can save a few bucks here on the bottom line, right? Not up front. You're going to spend a lot of bucks. Not a lot. It's not the craziest thing. Not the cheapest thing. Let's do another text message. Let's just keep rolling them in, rolling along. Here we go. Hi. I don't know if you listened to Jake Shane's podcast, but he was talking to Dylan Efron and told him he still doesn't have a driver's license. I need your thoughts. Jake Shane said he takes Ubers everywhere. I can't wrap my mind around this. Thank you in advance. Okay. I have seen this clip of Jake Shane talking to Dylan Efron. And Dylan Efron in this clip is talking about how he can't believe some people, wait to get their licenses because when he was young, he couldn't wait to get his so that he could start driving and have independence. And basically, Jake Shane, who is a fun podcaster, he sits there kind of silently and then admits that, and I'm not entirely sure how old he is. He's definitely in his 20s, maybe like mid-20s, early 20s, but says that he does not have a driver's license. I've seen this clip. And I've seen this clip. I'm like trying to defend myself of being a legitimate journalist. I've seen the clip. And he says that he takes Ubers everywhere. What do I think? All right, before I get into what do I think, I want to talk a little bit about my history of me getting my license, because I did get my license a little bit later in life. I was 21 or 22 when I got my driver's license, but I feel like I had a good reason. And my good reason was that when I was like of driving age, I was living in Toronto, Ontario, and I didn't have money for a car. So I was taking, the TTC. So I was taking like the trains and the subway and, stuff like that, and the buses. Like that's how I was getting. And you could do that. It wasn't super easy. And if any of my friends were going to the same place I was going to, I always like got in the car with them. But I didn't get a license because there was a way for me to get around in a way where after I lived in Toronto, I lived in Michigan for a little while. And in Michigan, there's no public transit. You've got to be absolute. That's a joke. What? No. So that I did need to get a car, and I did need to get a license because you famously need a license to drive a car, which is what I did want to do with the car. I wanted to drive it. And I did get a used Subaru, which used to be a undercover police car because they did have like, the screws in the ceiling where like the lights were. Did the brakes work all the time? No. Actually, no, I'm lying. The brakes did work all the time. Did the gas pedal work all the time? No. What do I mean by that? Like I could be stepping on the gas, flooring the fucker to the ground, right? Flooring it. Car would be going nowhere, nowhere. And then it go, whoa, you get thrown back and it would go like a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, once it got going, we were going, but it was from 0 to like anything over 5. That's where we did kind of struggle. We did need to sort of like, it's okay. Easy, girl, easy. We didn't need to sort of do it that way. And sometimes in like high pressure moments, you'd have to like really hope that the gas would work in time. But so to go back to it, I got my driver's license when I lived in Michigan, and I needed to have a car to like get myself around. Now, I had never really done driver's ed, and I did not have a lot of experience driving a car at all. So one of my friends is the one who taught me how to drive. And I do recommend this, that if you are learning how to drive, I think one of your friends teaching you is actually the best way. And I want to tell you some of the things that my friend made me do, which did humiliate me in public, but did help me to feel comfortable behind the wheel. And so what we did was we were driving on the highway. I can't remember what the highway was. Maybe the 71 or the 70. It was like the Detroit metro area. Okay. So if that resonates with you in some sort of way, I'm glad. And on this highway, my friend was like, okay, drive 50 miles an hour. And I would do that. And she then turned to me and said, now drive 70 miles an hour. Okay, I can do that. And she said, now drive 85, get the car up to 85 miles an hour and pass that car. I'm sweating. Okay, I am absolutely sweating. Speed limit is 70. I'm not ready to go to jail. I'm not ready to go to jail. But I did as I was told. And then she said, okay, now bring it back down to 70. Bring it back down to 70, get in the other lane. Okay, I'm sweating. I am sweating. This is around the time Adele came out with the song Set Fire to the Rain. So that's playing on repeat. You know, I set fire to the rain. I'm going 85 miles an hour, 15 miles over the speed limit. I'm sweating bullets. I do not feel comfortable behind the wheel of this car. But I did have a learner's permit. So I was legally allowed to be doing what I was doing. All right. And so I'm doing as I'm told, and I'm back down to 70. I get into the other lane. She goes, turn the station of the radio. Oh, God, come on. This is just so much so fast. You know, turn the station of the radio. Oh, my God. Can I do it? And I do it quickly. I'm not looking at it. I'm like smacking it, you know, just like I'm trying to get it done. But I'm doing as I'm told. And she turns to me and she goes, these are just real world things that you're going to have to do when you're in the car. Sometimes you're not going to like the song and you're also going to need to change the lanes. So change the radio station again. And I did it. And then when we finally got to where we were going, I was getting ready to go into the parking garage. And she said, you're not going into the parking garage. You're going into the city. What was the name of the city? Maybe it was Birmingham. Okay. This story leans really into our Michigan listeners. And so I went into the downtown area of Birmingham. And she said, you're parking on the street, buddy. Parking on the street. Yeah, she was going to make me parallel park. Now, it was like the weekend. It's like busy. She goes, there's a spot. I want you to know that I gave it the old college try. And you might be thinking, what does that mean exactly? Well, what it meant was that I did try to park the car in a parallel way. And I was of college age, right? So that would make it the college try. But I did not succeed. And it did, in fact, it was sort of like a public embarrassment of what happened because I just could not get the car. I drove up onto the sidewalk and I was completely perpendicular to the other cars. Right? Like I had half the car up on the sidewalk. The iPhone was new, right? People were just starting to get the iPhone. We were still like debating BlackBerry versus iPhone. People were pulling out the iPhones and the BlackBerry Pearls. And they were taking pictures because they've never seen a car that wasn't in an accident up on a sidewalk like this. They'd never seen it before. They didn't think it was possible. I'm sure they thought it lacked decorum. It did. And so I said, you know what? I can't fix this. And I think I need to tap out. I think I need to know when I've lost. And in that moment, I did lose. I lost. So I had to get out of the car. And, I'm a showman at the very heart of who I am. I'm a showman. So I get out of the car and I go, I know, first time. It's my first time. I'm so sorry. Please keep going. And I think I really did win over the crowd. I won them over. They did like that I was heeing and hawing with them. But I did have to get out of the car. I did need to let my friend kind of take that over. And she did realize she pushed me a bit too far. I was still sort of white knuckling the steering wheel after having to go 85 while listening to Adele over and over for about the 10th time, which, that was my idea. But I didn't realize that it put me in a state of such alert that there was only so much I could do. So needless to say, back to the original question of what do I think of people getting their licenses when they're older? I think anybody who gets their license, I could not imagine myself having to take an Uber everywhere. That sounds like a prison sentence. Yeah, I would not ever want to do that. I try to avoid taking an Uber at all costs, unless it's to like the airport or something where I don't want to leave the car, right? Or if I'm going to a dinner where I know I'm going to have like a few drinks, I'll suck it up. I'll take the Uber. But if I don't have to and I can take my car, I'm always doing that. I don't understand, especially if you have the means, right? Like if you don't and you have to take the bus and like whatever, okay, you take the bus. Listen, we've all taken the bus before. Nothing wrong with that. But if you have the possibility and the option to, I could be taking a car, I would always choose that. You can choose your own music. You can blast it. You can get into fake arguments with people and just scream at the top of your lungs. You can be an insane person in your own car while driving safely, I will say. But that's what you're allowed to do in your own car. I love being in my own car. I love it. Sometimes I will get to where I'm going and I will just sit in the car for a few minutes and I will just soak up being in that private box. And it feels so good. I could not imagine not being able to do that. I couldn't imagine not being able to get into my own private box with chairs, which is, that's what I call the car, private box with chairs. I couldn't imagine it. So I do feel like there is a generation of people who have, it's the British in me coming out, who have not ever experienced that sort of joy. And you can't get that kind of joy in an Uber. What? No, taking an Uber to the grocery store? What do you do? Sit outside with the bags and like wait for the car? Oh, it sounds terrible. I could not ever, never, ever. No. So what do I think about it? I hate it. I hate that. So that's what I think about it. We're on a roll. We are truly on a roll. We've talked about Christian nationalists, coffee, driver's license, all the hot topics of today. Why not do one more text message? Because I have a long list of them. And it goes here. Hey there, Adam. You are an Olympian. That is true. Very true. So I feel like you might have a good answer for me. I just started running. Do you have a preference of running shoe? I wear Nike shoes now. Just your basic whatever Nike shoe. Should I branch out? Thank you. Love the pod. I don't really have a good answer for you, to be very frank. And this is kind of the reason why. I'll tell you. Yeah, Nikes are good, I guess. Whatever. I'm not a runner. Okay? I'm not a runner. I don't like running. Never have. And there's a part of me that wishes that I was sort of like somebody who went on runs and somebody who liked running. That part of me does exist. Because I just imagine that it would be nice, right? Like, I'm going to go for a run. I love the idea of saying that. I love the idea of saying, I'm going on a run. I'm just going to do a quick 10K. I'm going to do a quick 5K, right? I love that. My husband's a runner. He loves to run. Not me, though. Not a runner. I like to walk, but not a runner. Never have liked it. It just feels like my body's shutting down. Does that mean anything? Not sure. But when it comes to the sneakers, this is where I can help you a bit. Now, I'm trying to think how to tackle this. And it's this. Now, Nikes, I think they're like nice sneakers, I guess. But I feel like the best sneaker for me is an Asics sneaker. There's just something where it feels like supportive and it feels nice. And they're my favorite kind of sneaker, even though I did break my foot in a Asics sneaker. And I think about that every time I put an Asics sneaker on, where I'm going, okay, I guess I'm going to be fraternizing with the enemy. But there's something about the Nike shoe where it just feels like it's made of garbage. Right? I'm being a bit blunt here. Like, it doesn't truly feel like, it feels too light or whatever. And sometimes I feel like they're like, the light technology is a scam. Right? Why can't the shoe be a little heavy? What's the problem with that? Why not just a little weight in the shoe make me feel like it's something nice, not something that's made of like weightless trash? Okay? But I've never had a real problem with the Nikes, right? Never a real problem. I will tell you what shoes last forever. And this is to like go for a walk, whatever. I wear a pair of Converse that I've had for maybe, I'm going to say 15 years. I wear them every morning to take the dogs on a walk. Every morning. And those shoes, they've given me a lot of life. And they work really well. I know you're not going to go on a run on that. You're not going on a run in a Converse. That's crazy work to think you're going to do that in the flattest shoe possible. But if you're looking for a walking shoe, I think you could do that. But yeah, I think the other shoe, I cannot remember the name of it, but those cloud looking shoes, I hate those. They don't look good. Did I buy them at one time? I did, because I was so curious, like, what's the hype? I needed to know. Why are we doing this? Why are people so dedicated to this sort of craft, this cloud shoe? And I went, all right, I have to go buy into it now. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. And it was incredibly comfortable. I do have to say, I really did love the way that it felt. It was light, but there was still a little bit of nice weight to it as well. How could it not be? It looks like a boat. But I saw myself, this is where I lost faith in the shoes. I saw my reflection in the mirror and it looked like I was like Bozo the fucking clown. Right? Like, nobody should be wearing shoes that comical. Like, they looked whimsical. And so I just don't like the way they look. Yeah, I'd rather go, like I said, fraternize with the enemy, the Asics company, because I just think that shoe is like sleek. I think it looks nice. That's what I have to say. So I feel like if you're loving the Nikes, you stay true to you. But I've always loved the Asics. They've only done me wrong once, right? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I will get back up on here on this podcast, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know if they fool me twice. But so far, so knocking on wood, so good. And that's what I have to say on that. Now, I feel like that's it with the text messages. We did 3. We did a heavy monologue in the beginning. Let's do something soft to end the show. And the something soft is I want to talk a little bit about the medical spa that I'm opening. And it's this. So I'm not talking anything about it except about the space. And at this point in time, I am... What am I? Well, I'm choosing like paint colors and like acquiring like the furniture and all the equipment that we need right now. So I am quite excited about that. And I am very excited because I want to like share more about like the process and everything once more starts like happening. And I feel like if you've ever started a business before, if you've like ever done something like this before, feel free to like reach out, because I would love to hear from anybody who's ever started a business or done something like this before, where they've got like leased out space and they've done a build out and things like that, because I'm finding it so fascinating. It's very fun. You know, it's very fun. I'm loving the process. I am loving the absolute process. But it's like at moments intimidating. So far, if I had to give anybody a piece of advice when it comes to this, the best piece of advice I've ever gotten came from one of my friends who was like, basically, this is what he said. He said, whatever your dream is, like when you open this space, he's like, cut the arms off, cut the legs off, and don't be afraid to just like get it out there. And it's been great advice, because there's little things where when I started this, I was like, no, I'll absolutely do this. Whether it was like, you know, I wanted to have this kind of floor in a space or something. And, you know, it's like, okay, it's a new business. You're not going to spend thousands of dollars on a new floor if there's one in there that like works. So it's been a great lesson I also feel like that applies to like many other things, right? You know, just get it going. You can always upgrade. You can always change. It's great advice, because sometimes I am definitely guilty of this, where I will like get in my own way and be like, no, it's got to be perfect. And sometimes you just need to remember there is no such thing as perfect, right? There's no such thing as perfect. Even though I think like Asics are a perfect shoe, they're not perfect, because they did help me break my foot, right? So nothing's perfect. But we're all doing our best. Right? We are all doing our absolute best. And with that, I feel like that is the end of an excellent episode. Absolutely incredible episode of Intrusive Thoughts. Now, if you would like to call or text the podcast, we would love to hear from you. Absolutely would love to hear from you. That number is 310-909-7117. Don't fret. You do not need to memorize that number. It is in my Instagram biography. It's also in a link tree in my Instagram biography. So you can find the number there. But just in case you have a pen and a paper, it is 310-909-7117. We would love to hear from you. And we've loved hearing from everyone. When I say we, again, I am in a room by myself with my dog, Tony. So me and Tony, have loved hearing from you. We really have. Please make sure that you give this podcast 5 stars. We would love that. Give this podcast a great review. It helps people find the show. So with all that being said, if you have the Gaggebreva, go make yourself a nice cup of coffee and have a great day. Love you lots. And I'll see you here next time on Intrusive Thoughts.